home park you're under contract, because the first deal actually fell through. So yeah, just through some relationships, networking, and a mentor that I have kind of put me onto that asset class.
Got it. That's the strategy is with mobile homes. You're leasing back the land or the lots to the owners or the tenants, but you can also you can buy the trailers and lease those or finance those. They can buy them from you, and you can and now you've got a chunk of cash, and then essentially if they default, then it's yours again. I know there's different strategies, there's different ways that the business works, but there's the leasing the land, leasing the lot part. That's I think the most enticing, because you're not necessarily dealing with the tenants, toilets, and trash at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I kind of learned that during COVID. I had that single family home in Maryland still, and I had this 8-unit mobile home park, and the tenant in the single family lost their income and pretty much said, I'm not paying you rent anymore. And the 8-unit just kind of kept plugging along, and people were paying their lot rent. So yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do it: park owned homes or tenant owned homes. Mine are 100% tenant owned homes. So yeah, I just kind of lease the land, maintain the infrastructure, do some snow removal, things like that. And the real benefit to that, and what I think it's important for people to understand, is a lot of people are indifferent to the lot rent model or don't see the value of it. To me, it's not any different than an HOA fee. And what it does is lowers the person that owns that home, their property taxes are lower because I pay the taxes on the land. I pay the debt service on the land. So it does create kind of extreme affordability for the people that are able to own those homes. And some of them in my park, even, they bought them so cheap that the only thing they pay every month is utilities and their lot rent, so you can't live that cheap in this environment.
Yeah, no, and that's a few $100, I'd say, right? It's unless, yeah, no, that's that. And a lot of people, that's why you'll see they're extremely resilient through good times and bad times. It's you've got major like Berkshire Hathaway, they're a massive operator on parks.
Yeah.
Cool. So how are you able to grow and leverage your network with real estate?
Yeah, that's so just a couple things on the networking side. When I got that first deal under contract, I was out of my own money at that point to invest. And so I had a good friend that said, hey, yeah, let's do this deal together. So I threw up some earnest money and got the deal under contract. And then that person backed out on me, man. And so just the power of my network in going to those events and whatnot, I'd reached out to just everybody. I was kind of like back against the wall. I'm going to lose this deal. I didn't do it right in the fact that I didn't have a list of investors before I went into this deal. So it was kind of like scrambling to, okay, I'm either going to learn a lesson here and lose this earnest money, or I'm going to find somebody to invest in my deal. And it was actually a local guy who's a good buddy of mine that just kind of, my reputation kind of succeeded myself. And he said, hey, yeah, reach out to this guy. Maybe he'd be willing to help you. And I went and had lunch with this guy one time and kind of told him about my deal and just who I was and what I was about. And he said, well, if that guy doesn't do that deal, let me know. I'd probably do it. And so the first time I raised $200,000, we did 8% interest only for 30 months. And it was a guy I didn't even really know, man. And it was just through the power of my networking and what I'd done kind of up to that point to be able to raise that capital the first time. And then as far as that, just, structuring deals. And as I just went about this last deal that I did, definitely utilizing my network just as far as deal structure, how to present things to a seller on an off-market deal, and utilizing people that I've met and now friends with on Facebook, man. And I consider my friends, and I try to link up with when we're traveling around the country or hitting different events. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, network is absolutely huge. And then of course, people that trust in you and your vision and you as an operator and your character, that's where investors are comfortable placing capital to you as being a good steward of their money, because they believe in what you can do. And that's where past performance, if you've got deals that you've done and they've been a proven success, it gets easier and easier as you do more deals and you become more relevant. That's the power of real estate too, is it just compounds.
Yeah, well, I think a big point there though is like that was my first time ever raising capital. I didn't necessarily have the track record, and so I did have to put some skin in the game. I pulled some money out of some stock investments I did previously in my life, and so I had to put some skin in the game, and I had to back it with another piece of property I had. But I just want people to understand, like, that was not that was kind of my first time going through that, and so I had to insure his capital, and I didn't have quite the track record, but I did have the reputation. You know what I mean? And so any factor of those things can make it work for you.
But you were willing to put other things at risk
Yeah.
because it was your first deal. And when you have somebody willing to go all in with everything that they've got as well, then that kind of glues you to the project. You believe in the success of it, and someone else will as well if you're willing to do it. So that's
Yeah.
first deal is whatever it takes, and then it gets
Yeah.
better from there. What was the key to raising money for your deals? Is it just networking? Is it getting out there, getting the word out, or what do you feel like the key was?
Yeah, so I just told you obviously about that first one. I'll talk a little more about. I just raised capital again for this for my second deal, and I'm just bringing in a brand new manufactured home. I'm going to set it on one of my existing lots in my park. And so what I did there is just kind of told the story. I did a kind of a PowerPoint presentation and sent it out to about, I would say I have a list about 60, 70 people. So not a huge list of people potentially ready to invest with me. And I got maybe 4, 5, 6 people that were ready to help me on this project. So it was only $100,000 to bring in one unit. It's affordable housing deal. Again, like I believe in the deal. People believe in me. I think I present the opportunity very well. And so just trying to, yeah, paint that picture. What does it look like? How's it going to work out? I do have a little bit of a track record now. So to me, like that has just blown me away, and how easy it was to raise the capital the second time around, right? Like once I've gotten a little bit comfortable with it, like I had that money committed in 48 hours, man, after sending out one video to 60 people. So that was
That's
really
incredible.
cool. A lot of confidence for me in moving forward and continuing to do bigger projects and continue to raise capital for things.
Yeah, and right now is a great time for people to invest in hard, real assets of any kind, whether it's land, multifamily, real estate, just anything that is tangible. With everything going on with just different elements in the world and the economy and everything else, it's a great time for investing in what we do. How do you ensure you're investing in for the future, but also living to the fullest? I know you're in a camper right now. I know you're traveling, which is awesome, and I think that might be a part of it. But
Yeah.
how do you ensure that?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think really dial in, like, what does this path look like for me? I think you can go to a lot of those networking events and see the people with 2,000, 3,000 doors, and you got to figure out what does it look like for you. And so for me, it's, we still want to live our life today, travel, hang out with my son. I don't want to be glued to a screen or Zoom calls 80 hours a week. To me, that's not the end goal, and that's not why I'm trying to build wealth and create, financial freedom for my family, man. So yeah, we try to make sure that that's at the forefront, and that's part of the goals as well, is like, what are we working for? What are we doing all this stuff? So yeah, I was in a car wreck last February. This lady came across the median on me like 60 miles an hour head on almost. And so lucky to be here. I like to say I'm living life in the bonus round. And so again, it's like, for us, we've done this RV stuff a handful of times, and we've been to some really awesome places like Bryce Canyon, and we'd see people roll up there at like 60, 70, 80 years old, man, and they can't go do the hikes. They can't go do that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so just trying to make sure we're investing for the future, continuing to grow the net worth, continuing to grow the amount of assets that we have control of. And but at the same time, man, we got to make sure we're living for today and still having a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
that's just been a huge part of our life, and it helps me to vet deals and say, all right, is this deal going to is it going to take too much of my time, or am I able to plug people into this thing, or how does it fit into the scheme of my life?
So with that, to maintain sanity and to be able to do other things, do you have property management in front of you, or how is that piece of your business handled?
Yeah, and so that just happened as I closed the second half of this park in October. Day one, actually, it's funny. We closed October 27th, and we hit the road November 1st. And so
Nice.
I closed. We went, kind of walked the property. I lined out a property manager, and he's been handling the entire park. It's only 17 units, kind of a smaller deal, but to a lot of people that might seem like a lot. But so yeah, I got a property manager in play. I just kind of chat with him remotely, and so now that I have that experience, it's like, all right, man, we need a handful more deals like that we can continue to just plug in and build the team. And I don't really have much of an internal team as far as my company, but like I said, I do build a team of awesome realtors, property managers, contractors, all that kind of stuff.
That's great. Yeah, and they're all intricate parts of the bigger equation, that's for sure. So on this podcast, we appreciate you coming on. What was the reason that you wanted to be on?
Yeah, man, I'm a real estate hustler, bro. You
That's
know,
it.
I'm in it. I really want to like encourage people. I hear a lot of podcasts and it's people that have been super, super successful. I'm kind of just in the trenches still, man. I'm kind of
Yeah.
still, I would say, just starting out. I've done 4 or 5 deals. And so I just wanted to share that, you know, it's whatever your path is. I set out to do a deal a year for 10 years in 2018. So far, we've been doing that. So I'm kind of still in the middle of it. And I've got some big goals and dreams around real estate. But yeah, man, I love to just share and get it out there. And also just want to chat mobile home parks and affordable housing because I think there's so much unlimited demand in that asset class in the country right now. So
That's
um,
absolute. The
yeah,
the cool thing with real estate is that there's always somebody ahead of you. No matter what level you're on, there's always somebody else that is ahead. Whether you've got
yeah,
10,000 units, 20,000 units, 40,000 units, there's always another person that has more. And that's the cool thing is that you can the path has already been proven. The path to success is already modeled by others, and all
yeah.
you have to do is learn the game and model after the players that have already spent the money learning their lessons along the way.
That's like I've learned that just with our other business. We've tried a couple different businesses, and to me, it's like you know, housing, clothing, and food. Man, they're never going away, right? And so housing,
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's people have already done it for years, and so I just continue to super fresh. Like we've tried that stuff. It's frustrating, you know.
Oh
So
yeah. It's like trial and error and research R&D and it's trying to reinvent the wheel that's already been invented in a lot of cases with small business. So I totally get the frustrations, but um, I'm focused on affordable housing. That is like the number one thing right now is affordable housing everywhere. And being in that sector, it almost guarantees success to a certain degree. So I agree with you wholeheartedly because it's such a shortage and there's where things are going right now, there's just not an end in sight. What's your take on that?
yeah, man, I agree. It's definitely I feel like there's unlimited demand in the space, and so I mean, my focus, I'm focused on creating home ownership for people, man. I think that's the coolest
Yeah,
part. If I can do it as an investor and still create a little bit of a return for me or get a piece of it somehow for crafting the deal and putting that together. Again, it's about crafting win-win. So yeah, it's been pretty cool, man. I did one unit in 2020, sold it to a recent college grad. He sold it within a year and made some equity and moved on, and now there's a great family living in that one. And this new one I'm going to set up is just the second one I've done as far as a new unit. But I've got some conversations going on and looking to hopefully scale the model and figure out how to do this. I'm seeing more capital than ever, like rallying behind mobile home parks and helping the residents to buy the land under their trailers, right, from private investors. So the government's kind of stepping into the space as well. And I think yeah, there's just a lot of potential. So I'm hoping that we see in the future just less and less restrictions around the manufactured housing communities and HUD style homes, so that we can get more units online quicker. You know, a lot of people I think, are just still attached to that old mobile home of the 1970s era. That's just like a piece of crap house. And some of those are still around and people still live in them 50, 60 years later. Right. But the new
yeah,
product, the 2023 stuff that's coming out it's a nice house, man. You know, you
yeah,
can go walk in those units. It's 2x6 framing. They live really well. They're a lot wider than they used to be. And so there's a lot of those factors where that really is the only way you can make it quote unquote affordable, right? And that obviously comes with some defining as what is affordable. But we've had some recent townhome configurations come online in our town, and they're still 270, $300,000.
yeah.
You know, interest rates kind of out of reach for most people. And so if we do a manufactured home and we kind of do a co-op model or, you know, a land lease model, it really can be the most affordable thing in the area when you compare it to other, you know, 2 bed, 1 bath, 2 bed, 2 bath configurations. So
Yeah, and modular built inside of a massive warehouse, and they're
yeah,
able to engineer it to where there's very limited waste, and it's the speed of building it is just much more effective than on-site stick build, and they can even put them on foundations and make it a true modular house if put it
yeah.
set it by crane. So no,
Yeah, I mean, we were like 6 weeks from order to delivery date from the factory, and then once the house lands, we're about probably 3 to 4 weeks to set it up. skirt it, do all that good stuff, and then that thing's ready to hit the market. So
What's the what are you seeing as a cost per square foot on acquisition of a new one?
yeah, that's a good question. Depends on the market, man, for sure. I'm in Colorado in a very what would I say, like very expensive mountain town market. And so for me to bring stuff online there in I would say $175 to $200 a square foot is still like so cheap, because our regular single family product is maybe 500 to 1,000 a square foot,
Wow, that's
and
incredible.
so yeah, it just depends. And that's, you got to have electricians and plumbers are driving an hour and a half away to come build houses where we are, so it's
Wow.
just not feasible, and the labor rates are just crazy. So it's still cheaper. I think anything, and I think most markets, anything, if you bring it online under 400,000, it's moving really quick. I keep an eye on a couple different markets, and that sub $400,000 price point stuff is just moving really quick still.
They've got I think I've seen a video come across, I think it was a couple weeks ago, where they're basically 3D printing houses now. There's a large developer out west in Arizona that's doing an entire neighborhood just printed, and it's all about the cost. And they're definitely not, they're not big, but that's another thing that's coming down the pipe is I think really developers are trying anything that makes sense to limit labor and material to help procure affordable housing.
For sure.
So the last question here is, how would you suggest someone wanting to get into real estate get started?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question once you're down the road a little bit. Like I said, I've done a handful of deals, but for me, I started in single family. And so I had a good conversation with the guy yesterday. It's kind of like, well, what do you want to focus on? What are your goals? And kind of trying to start with the end in mind, I think, is important. But at the same time, for me, I just kind of started. I knew I needed to buy a house, and then I felt comfortable renting somewhere else and going to live somewhere else if I had a mortgage and I knew I was paying that equity, building equity and paying the debt down there. So but I've also seen people start and they're just off to the races and buying huge deals. So again, I think it's just what's your path look like and what are you comfortable with? Like for me, it was a single family, it was a 2-unit, and then I managed that remotely for 8, 9, 10 years before I sold that deal. So I think it's important to figure out what are your goals, how much capital do you have, or what do you bring to the table. Maybe you have some management experience and you can leverage that, or you have a network of people and you can bring some capital, but trying to figure out like what it is for you. And if you're not really sure, then just continue to gain that knowledge for a little while. And I feel like I did that for like a year or two. I just read tons of books, listens to podcasts, did all that, but can't do that forever, right? At some point you got to leap, you got to go look at properties and you got to start putting offers in on deals. And so like we put an offer in on one property last week. I don't know that we'll get it, but we're out there, I'm walking properties, I'm looking at deals, and eventually, making offers, and then that's going to get you into your first deal. You just got to start, man.
What was the book that kind of, was there a certain book that got you into more interested in real estate?
Yeah, I'll tell a cool story. I reached out to this guy who was looking for a property manager, just trying to learn and get under somebody to learn. And he sat down with me, and he's the one that kind of said, hey, what's your return on equity on your Maryland house? How much equity do you have sitting there, and could you leverage up to buy another deal? And he kind of had this whole financial roadmap that he shared with me, and a list of kind of books. And I read all the books on that list. One I'll give a shout out to right now is The Wise Investor by Rich Fetke. And I've met Rich at an event, and that's just a great book, just why you should invest in real estate. The guy I chatted with yesterday, he was like, yeah, my wife's just not really on board. And it's like, well, dude, real estate's the answer. It's a good investment, right? And but there's still those challenges and the fear around that. But for me, I don't know, all the regular books, man, like Rich Dad Poor Dad and Richest Man in Babylon, stuff like that. But again, I think there's almost like too much knowledge out there now. And it's kind of like the more you can focus in and like, all right, what are you specifically looking for? And then go learn that. I think that's kind of the key, because if not, you're going to be like, oh, self-storage, oh, mobile home park, whatever, And so for me, it's hard even now, man, but I'm trying to stay in my lane, and I'm trying to stay in the affordable stuff and home ownership for people. And so I'm going to MHI conference in Vegas next month, and I'm just going to keep building those networks and that around how do we create more affordable units and bring them online.
Yeah, I like what you said. Concentrate, go a mile deep instead of a mile wide.
Yeah,
and just become that expert. Awesome. If someone wants to get a hold of you and learn more about you and your company and your mission, your vision, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Purpose Back Ventures is just kind of me at the moment. So reach out to me via Wheelies and Waves. That's our adventure company in Colorado. So hello at wheeliesandwaves.com is great. Or just look me up. I'm actually the adventure investor on Instagram as well. So you can
Perfect.
definitely reach out to me there.
We'll have your contact information as well and repost this. So cool. Awesome. I appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing your journey, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.
You too. Bye.